Hello, everyone. Welcome to Self Love You. Today, I want to just pop on and say hello and give you a little teaching of some things that I'm learning or relearning. And I want to share that with you. Today, we're going to talk about the hypervigilance of someone who has been abused by a narcissist or a narcissist system, the hypervigilance that comes along with that, and the role that you play. That's what we're going to talk about today. I also had a special comment request that I'm going to do a separate video on here in a minute. But for right now, we're just going to talk about the hypervigilance of growing up in a narcissist environment and how to handle it. Now, I know that the terms that I'm using have probably been used before, and you might think you know what I'm going to talk about, but you don't. What I'm going to talk about is something very specific, something very new, and something that not a lot of people are talking about or understand. This is something that I have figured out on my own, through my own soul searching, using my experience, using my understanding, insight. So this is not something you're going to get anywhere else, and I'm going to explain it to a T for you right now to the best of my ability. Okay, so what we're talking about today is we're talking about hypervigilance. And when I say hypervigilance, I'm talking about a bias to looking at the scary aspects of life, or a bias toward really hyper-focusing on the negative behaviors of others or how you're being treated poorly, that kind of thing, okay? So whenever I talk about hypervigilance in this context, I'm talking about it's almost like the PTSD where you have been damaged and now all you can do is search for that damage happening again and again and again. This has a lot to do with maladaptive schemas. You can look at some of my previous audios, podcasts, and videos where I talk about maladaptive schemas. When you grow up in a certain environment where abuse is the regular, or where neglect occurs, or whatever kind of abuse in your childhood from ages 0 to 7, or you may not even know this happened to you. You may not even be in touch. A lot of people are not. That is part of the journey, is really discovering really what happened. You know that if you have some sort of hypervigilance in your adult life, that it obviously something happened to you when you were young, because that's when all of your circuitry, your programming is being laid down. That's when your identity is forming. And if you have symptoms as an adult that are where you're hypervigilant, that PTSD type of experience based, generally speaking, you're going to find, if you dig around, you're going to find the root cause is how you were raised between age 0 to 7. So with that out of the way, with all of the definitions, let me go a little bit deeper. So hypervigilance, in terms of really focusing on the negative behaviors of others, really focusing on how others are treating you, and really noticing the negative stuff more than the positive. You do not realize you're doing this. This is not something that you learn right away. This is something that's taken me years of recovery and healing to understand and to gather. But I'm going to go ahead and lay it down right now for you, so that when you get here, or maybe it'll help you now, or maybe that's where you are right now, and you can use this information to start looking at your own biases, your own hypervigilance, your own irrational fears, your own hyperfocus on the negative aspects of life instead of the positive. So one of the things about maladaptive schemas, there's 12 maladaptive schemas, and they are, I'm incapable, I'm unworthy, I'm unloved, I'm not worthy of love. There's all this cluster, and you might want to look it up on Google, 12 maladaptive schemas, to do some more digging around and deep dive into that. But part of the process is your mind cognitively is looking for confirmation of what you believe about yourself. So that is why Marilyn Monroe, that quote that is attributed to Marilyn Monroe that says, if you don't love yourself, no one else can love you. And it really makes perfect sense, that whole concept, that in order for other people to love you, in order for you to receive love, you must first know how to give it to yourself. And that really stems from your childhood relationships, starting all the way back to the mother, food, breastfeeding, all of that. It all stems from that level. And if you are not raised by a parent who has the capacity to forget themselves and empathize with you, and maybe they're too busy or subconsciously they're incapable for whatever reason, then you may grow into a person who has a maladaptive schema. Or you may have experienced active abuse in childhood, which also creates maladaptive schemas. These maladaptive schemas are ways of looking at the world, ways of processing information. And it has to do with the immaturity of the mind at the childhood age to understand what is happening. And so instead of blaming the parent or life or circumstances or, it could be war, it could be whatever. Instead of blaming external circumstances, the child, in the small mind of the child, in order to survive and go through the milestones they need to go through, the child will internalize external information that they're not worthy, not good enough, not capable, can't do it. There's all these different things that can happen in your mind that life teaches you that you can't, and it's called learned helplessness and victim mentality. And what happens is you are taught something, and when you're a child, you swallow these lies. You swallow these lies about yourself, and the mind is very, very skilled. And what the mind does, whatever you believe about yourself, about others, about the world, about love, about relationships, whatever you believe, the mind works overtime to prove your accuracy. The mind proves you are right. So a maladaptive schema is the process of just constantly noticing those things that confirm what you already believe about yourself. And so the healing process is a process of untangling from those schemas, from those thoughts, and cognitive behavioral therapy is the process of rethinking what your thoughts are, rethinking how you feel about yourself or how you think about yourself, rethinking how you feel about others, about how you feel about the world, about how you feel about your worthiness to be loved, your capableness to achieve what you need to, your ability to survive, to keep a job, to whatever it is. There's all kinds of different bleeps that you can have in your programming. So your mind is constantly trying to repeat and tell you and make you be right. So whenever you have one of these schemas, whenever you have these cognitive distortions, you see life as you originally believe it to be. And all you're going to truly notice is those things that confirm your negative view of yourself, or your negative view of how others feel about you, or your negative view of the world and relationships. Everything you see and everything you process is going to be along the lines of that maladaptive schema if you have this issue. And generally, if you're wanting to learn to love yourself, that's where the core root issue resides. Although there's a lot more involved, it's very complicated, and there's a lot of healing work to be done. But I'm talking about on a cognitive thinking level, a day-to-day level. So this is one layer, and you just take care of all of your healing one layer at a time. And so in this, what I want to explain is So for some people, not me, I'm not talking about me, am I? No, I am talking about me. For myself, in my life, growing up, there always had to be a boogeyman, okay? There was always someone, due to the fact that I went through abuse, someone out there that was the bad guy, okay? The bad guy was out there always operating against me. And it put me in a position, a role. I was in a role. And looking back, I can see how I was nurtured in this role. Okay? I was nurtured in the role of being the victim of a boogeyman. Whether it be it could have been a parental figure who was abusive to me. If it was a parental figure who was abusive, or it could have been a teacher. There's always some person outside of myself who would have been harming me in some way. And when I went to my family system for support, I received support when there was a boogeyman out there. It could have been a teacher who was mean. It could have been a guy I was dating who treated me badly. It could have been, a co-parenting situation. Whatever it was, I received love, affirmation, affection, attention, direction, and parenting around the boogeyman. So it's almost like, I don't know if you've ever heard of anyone who grows up and they become a hypochondriac and they're always sick because the only time when they were growing up, or potentially this could have been why, when they were growing up, they received affirmation, parenting, attention, time, and direction when they had a problem, when they were sick. That's whenever the parenting came out of their family system. And so they received affirmation in their sickness. And now today, as an adult, they are very focused on sickness. And they're very focused on, they have all sorts of medical issues. And then our big pharma system supports this type of behavior because you can go and take a pill for this, a pill for that. They treat the symptom, not the issue. But a person who grew up in an environment where they were parented in extreme situations where they only got love when they were sick, then that person is they're acclimated to being sick. And it's a behavioral process. It's training someone to behave ill, because when you're ill, that is the only time that you get the love and the care that you need. Same thing can happen, or that happened to me in my family. And I would say that I was the scapegoat on many levels. I was the scapegoat and the golden child all in one, in different parts of my family, just depending on what part you're talking about. So I was taught personally that I could get love, attention, affection, direction only if I was being harmed, only if there was an outsider that I could complain about. And looking back, if you think about it, I was in a weak position. If the only time you get what you need from your parents or from the family system, family of origin, if the only time you get what you need is when you have someone who is harming you, then that's not a good place, because that means you're being trained that, hey, whenever you're being harmed by someone externally, you're going to get the love and affection and attention and direction that you need. And so what do? You go and you notice someone else who's treating you badly. And then you bring that baggage, and then the family system, helps you with that problem. And you get the love and you get your needs met because you bring in the weakness. You show up with the weakness. You're not shining. You're not showing up with your value. You're not showing up with your high achievement. You're not showing up in just being real. You don't get what you need just being yourself. You have to actually bring a whole lot of baggage to prove that you're less than, to prove that you're weak. And whenever you bring that baggage to the table, the family system can laugh at you, pretending to laugh with you, but they're laughing at you. And really, it's just like a nail in a coffin. It's just like they're hammering that nail. They hammer the nail of your weakness, and you feel loved when you bring this weakness to the table. When you bring this person who's treating you poorly, and you share this person who's treating you poorly with this family system, and then everybody comes together, everybody is there for you, but no one is there when it's just a normal day and you're doing fine. And this leads to such a downhill trajectory, because there's a lot of times they're not there. Like when you have this mentality of constantly being attracted to abusers, or feeling like you only get love when there's an abuser in your life, or feeling like you're only valuable to people when they see you hurting and they're able to help you solve your hurting problem, you get a lot more than you ever bargained for. There are so many abusers, so many abusive things out there for you to find. And it can become so insidious that everyone around you becomes someone who's hurting you. And you're the one who's always being hurt. And of course, along with that, you don't have any boundaries. You don't have any boundaries. You don't have any ability to stop the negativity from happening to you, because you haven't been taught boundaries. You haven't been taught that you've got to walk away. You haven't been taught that you're strong enough to walk away. So not only are you're seeking it out, you're seeking out abuse. You're seeking out harm. And the people who are keeping you in your role, they're happy that you're doing that, because they don't want you to grow beyond that. They don't want you to be happy. For whatever subconscious reason that they have, they do not probably do it on purpose, but they don't want you to clear up this issue. They don't want you to be free from bad people. Because if you're free from bad people, that's the only way that this system knows how to love you. That's the only way they know how to see you. And if you're free from that, then you won't need them anymore, and they're not going to let that happen. So they continue to applaud you, to support you in your hypervigilance situation. I know this is difficult to explain and probably difficult to understand, but okay. So I started noticing in me, well, especially whenever you start getting boundaries and you start growing and you start realizing what toxic behavior is, and you start realizing that you're in a role and that you're feeling less than, and then you realize how you're putting yourself in that position, and you're realizing your thought patterns and your self-talk and your behaviors and your actions and your mental state, and you're seeing yourself do it, and you're seeing it, and you're watching it, and you're listening, and you're journaling, and you're trying to get out from under the double bind of, I only get love when there's someone harming me. I only get love when I need to be rescued. I only get love when, these people only see me. Okay, that's what love is, to be seen, heard, and understood. These people only see me whenever I am sharing my weakness. Only when I'm sharing the fact that Joe Blow or Susie Q is harming me. That's the only time I'm seen. What's the deal here? So you start to realize what's happening, and then you realize the habituation of this process, because what happens is it becomes an insidious habit where, And then on top of it, you know about all these toxic behaviors, and you just become obsessed. You become hypervigilant. And every behavior, is it bad? Is it good? Is it bad? Look, they did it again. It's happening again. And if you get to that point, that is the opposite end of the spectrum. It's the pendulum. It is the opposite of healthy, or it's the opposite of just being a doormat. The opposite of being a doormat is just being isolated and thinking that everyone is out to get you. Okay? So you have this swing in the pendulum, and you think, oh my gosh, look what they just did. 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 And I started noticing this in my own mind, in my own heart. And I started noticing that I was doing this, and I noticed that, wow, I have like a program that is keeping me in a weak position of a victim, because I'm seeing this negative behavior from others everywhere I look. Granted, it is everywhere. And, it's like this catch-22. You're enthralled in it. You're surrounded by it. You've got shame. You just are, you're steeped in it. But then as you start to climb out, and you start to climb out of the shame and start to grieve your losses and start to heal, then you can still be left with residual habits, residual behaviors, residual things that you don't need. Now, there was a time in my life where, in order to be seen, heard, and understood, loved, or, conditionally, I had to have a boogeyman in my life. There had to be somebody who was doing something to me. Then I could pick up the phone and call and complain about what was happening and how someone was treating me, or I could journal about it or whatever. But I don't need that anymore. That was helpful for me growing up. That was helpful for me, before I knew what's going on, because at least I got a little bit of love out of it, even though it was love for being weak, love for being less than. But I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to be less than anymore. I don't need to be weak anymore. And I don't need to be hyper-vigilant. I can take care of myself now. It's 2023. I have resources. I know what toxic behavior is. I know my worth. I know how to love myself. I know how to take care of myself. There's not a boogeyman that's out to get me. Of course, there are things in society that are bad that we need to, be aware of. There's behavior we need to be aware of, but I don't need to be constantly looking for it and constantly concerned on a personal level about what people are doing to me, or how they're mistreating me, or how they're devaluing me, or how they're disregarding me. I can notice disregard, and I can take action against it, or I can take action accordingly, or I can set a boundary, or I can just make a mental note, or I can distance myself, or I can, recognize when someone has a problem with honoring me the way they need to, or the way I deserve. And I can make choices that lead to better pathways for me that are more healthy. I can do that, but I don't have to ruminate on the negative behaviors of others and then internally seek support inside, or hurt. I don't have to hurt inside for every little perceived slight. I don't have to be thin-skinned. I can thicken up. I can thicken my skin. I'm tough. I don't need love based upon my weaknesses. I need love based upon who I am. And I'm capable of getting everything that I need. I'm capable of getting my needs met. I'm in my car and there's a man who's like wanting to drive or something. I don't know. But anyway, that's the way it goes. And so then you can say, okay, I am capable. I can do this. I don't have to be hyper vigilant. And you can stop yourself. You can save yourself. You can catch yourself in the process of being hyper vigilant, of constantly looking around every corner for slights, for disrespect, for disregard, and begin to take a place of power. Instead of the world happening to you, you can start happening to the world. And you can start making your decisions, split-second decisions, based upon what you like and what you don't like. You know, life is like a pizza. You can choose the cheese and the toppings that you want. You don't have to freak out on every slight. You don't have to hold a church service for every time you're disrespected. You don't have to do a YouTube or TikTok video for every time that somebody's being a jerk to you. You don't have to call in everyone and bemoan how you've been mistreated, because doing that puts you down. It's not healthy. It's good to recognize, it's good to process, it's good to have safe people, but the whole world is not your safe place. You don't have safe people in everyone. And that's not how relationships are supposed to be, even if that's how you were taught. Now, you may have a different level of this. Maybe you were rewarded and given love if you were sick. Maybe you were only rewarded and given, maybe you had some sort of lack. Maybe you were only rewarded if you went to someone's house and, however it was that you were rewarded. What I'm trying to teach is how to think about things and how to overcome them and how to see things and how to granularly see yourself and your thoughts. That's really what I'm trying to teach. So this has been helpful for me because I have to remind myself regularly when those old tapes come up and try to remind me of the disregard or remind me of how someone didn't treat me right or remind me over and over. I mean, if you're looking for trouble, you're going to find it around every corner. There comes a time when we just have to accept that not everyone is going to like you. Not everyone is going to love you. Not everyone is going to treat you well. But there will be some. There will be people out there that love you, that treat you well. And you're able to be loved just in being who you are. You don't have to go extra. You don't have to bring home a dead rat to get the Cub family to love you. You don't have to bring home a dead rat to get attention, to get love, to get affection. You are good enough without that dead rat. You're good enough without the disregard and how you're such a victim and how you've been so hurt and how you've been destroyed. You're good enough just by yourself. Now, this world is a hard place, and we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because Lord knows I've been through a lot of things, and, I think that it could be a cycle. It could be energetic. It could be the energy that I was pulling in because of this very deeply ingrained. It's a little bit more than victim mentality. It's victim mentality, but it's more. It's like literally where I was trained to be a victim and trained to get love when I was a victim. This could be happening to you if you are having a hard time getting a job and, the only time you really get the attention of your mother and father is when you complain about not being able to get a job. And then suddenly they drop everything they're doing and they're worried with you because they're so afraid of whatever it is within themselves. And so then you end up, there's a payoff. There's a payoff to your victimhood. So I guess my message is, I don't know how I'm going to title this video, but it's hypervigilance, and it's letting go of the hypervigilance, acceptance, meditation, prayer, breathing into when you're noticing that you are playing this role, because it's a role, it's a behavior pattern, it's a repetition compulsion, it's a wound. You're wounded because you didn't get love for who you are, and you could only get love for when you couldn't get a job, or whenever you were abused by a spouse, or whenever you were abused by a friend or whomever. That's when you got love. So you have this repetition compulsion of trying to figure out what the heck went wrong. And then you're constantly thinking it over and over again, and it becomes deeply ingrained, deeply embedded in your psyche. Thank goodness our brains and minds and hearts and souls and spirits are plastic, which means they grow continually throughout life. I don't know that I like the word plastic, but okay, the medical community, they're a boogeyman too for me. But there are real problems in society. There are real bad people. There are really bad times when you do need support, but you just want to make sure it's not all the time, and you want to watch. You want to be aware of it and know about it. So when that does happen, you can bring true issues with people who can see you as a whole person and not just someone who is less than. They can see you as an overcomer. They can see you as someone who will succeed, who will get a job, who will, find success in life, and who will overcome and come out stronger than ever before. Those are the people you need to bring your problems to. Not every person is a good ear for you. And sometimes you just have to, if there's nobody, you just have to find somebody, and they may not be good enough, but it's better than nothing. So just depending on where you're at. And it's just beautiful. And you can just love people for who they are, for what they're able to give, and not expect people who cannot give to give. People who cannot see to see, because they can't ever see, and they're never going to know, and they're going to miss out on the beauty that is you. They're not going to get it. They're not going to get to be around you because they can't just be there without there being a boogeyman, without there being something that you need resolved. And they need to be the bigger person. They have to be the higher level person who has all the answers. They have to be the hero. And you're just tired of being a zero. You don't have any time to be a zero. You're a hero. They're a hero. We're all heroes. You are your own hero. Okay, so that's what I have to say for today. I also want to do another audio regarding a question someone asked me last night, so I want to do another one here in a little while. Y'all have a great day, and my name is Jenna Ryan, and you guys can like, comment, share, and stay well. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon.